All right, how do we start with texture? There's no doubt that texture gives your track a lot of character and can make it feel either really happy or really underground. And since this track, we want to go for a bit of a darker vibe, we're gonna select Atmos that is a bit darker. So I have this sample prepared here. Sounds really dark, almost sounds like a factory, as if like it's night and rain is falling down inside a factory. So gonna take that, reduce the volume and slightly mix it in. Duplicate that here too. Perhaps take out some of the highs here and that harsh 1K frequency around here. Cool. That's simple. Just some type of atmospheric texture sound, organic field recording, anything will work here. But I like this one specifically because it sounds so industrial and so dark. And let's say every 8 bars we want to have a new stab or some kind of dark underground stab introduced. Therefore we can take this sample, duplicate that, reduce the volume. And let's change the BPM of the sample to, I think, 125. Yeah, 125. Duplicate that again. So the delay flatters are in sync. So this adds a bit of variation to every 8 bars. Cool. For this sample, we're also going to take out the lows so we don't have any mud in here and that harsh 1K frequency region. Around here, yeah. Cool. Now for the interesting part. You can see I have this MIDI track here, which is called Atmos Serum. We're going to load up Serum for that. Serum. So there is a preset here within the presets folder, which is called Simple Dark Saw Pads. And instead of loading it up, I'm actually going to create it from scratch, something similar. And therefore, we're going to need a sub that is pitched down 2 octaves. Activate the filter, activate oscillator B, and let's go for -1 +1. We can tweak that in a second now. And if I record on this layer and tune it down a bit, I can get a direct feedback as to how it sounds. Just make sure the keyboard's on up here. Oops. Activate B here, oscillator B. So oscillator B is going into the cutoff filter as well. Now we're gonna increase the attack. Cool. Let's reduce the octave here to 0 again. And what we're gonna do is just increase the unison on these. This one, let's say by 8, and this one by 4, so we have a bit of a wider sound. Ah, now it sounds like a pad. And let's move the sub oscillator also into the filter here. Cool. FX. And to give it a bit more natural movement, we're going to activate this flanger here. Can you hear that? Yeah, like kind of laser effect. Just kind of intense, so we're going to crank it down. And also, last but not least, add a bit of reverb. Make sure to add a low cut so only the high frequencies are applied to the reverb. Cool. A#3. So now let's create a MIDI clip here. Control-Shift-M and go for A#, because that's going to be the root note of our track. And what I'm going to do now is hit legato. So legato makes the note long, makes it play until the very end. Let me do that again here, legato. There we go. Let's give it a playthrough here. And as a matter of fact, let me pitch it up an octave here. And if I were to play this with the mix, sounds kind of cool, but let's make something more interesting out of that. So underneath the Atmos Serum layer, you can see an Atmos plucked layer. We're going to enable resampling here. Solo Atmos Serum. Maybe crank up the volume a bit so our resampled recording isn't that quiet. Record arm this layer here and just give it some time to record into the new channel here. And I do see the recording is a bit quiet, so I'm going to delete that and crank it up even a bit more. Perhaps just leave it at 0 dB here. Just give it a bit of time to play through here. Awesome. Now we can disable the old Serum layer and work with audio now. So we're going to take this section, and how about we just take a right click, 2 bars. Let's take a 2-bar section, this one, because we do have a bit of a fade out here, or fade in, and a fade out here. We don't want that. We want the sample to play as consistently as possible. So I'm going to take that here and duplicate that towards the end. Remove our ending here and make sure we set fades between the samples so we don't have that click coming in. Therefore, we're going to have to disable the keyboard here, hit A, and then we can draw in some fades here on the clip edges. Do that for every single one here. This might be a bit of work, but it's definitely necessary. So what I'm doing is setting a fade here, turning up the volume a bit here so we don't hear the fade. Now, let's slightly reduce the volume here and give it a playthrough. Low cut the sound here. Cool. Now here comes my special pluck technique. There's a reason this layer is called pluck. Let's duplicate that here. And we do not need the Serum layer, so I'm going to deactivate this clip by hitting 0 on my number pad and closing it down. We might come back to that later on, but for now we're going to work with the audio layer that we've just created here. And I want a 16th pluck note to be playing here. So what I'm going to do is right click, go into 16th. And now I'm going to click on the gain from this utility panel here. I've previously loaded up this into my audio track. So now we're going to head into automation mode. So click A. We can automatically see these lines. I'm going to highlight the section here, right click, and draw in this shape. So it's a triangle saw wave. And these would be 2 16th notes. We don't want that. We want it to play 1 16th note. So crank that down to 0 dB like this. I know it's a bit of fiddling. There we go. 0 dB. Take this section, duplicate that here. So we have a sawtooth playing all the time. I'm going to duplicate that again. So we're jumping down from 0 to -infinity, and that creates this pluck sound. Let's give it a quick playthrough here. Da 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 da. Nice. And now turn up the volume. Oh, where's the automation? It's gone. It's because I clicked on another parameter. Let's click on gain again, and this time hit plus. So just in case we click on another parameter, we always have our automation down here. Take this section, duplicate that towards the end as well. How cool is that? We've created a pluck out of a simple saw wave. And to add a bit more rhythmic variation, we're going to go into mixing, delay, drop that in here. Now you can actually hear a bit of a fade out, but we want the high frequencies to be applied. So let's move this guy over here, and the dry wet, put that to about 40%, 44, and ping pong. So the delay is actually being panned towards the left and right. Cool. What I'm going to do now is take the recording that we have here and just control and paste it down here. So we have an Atmos low layer here. And on this layer, we're going to also apply a low cut, take away the high frequencies, and give it a quick playthrough. Now it's the exact same sound, But if we pitch it down 1 octave, it sounds like this. Warp mode might not be the best one. Let's change that here. Complex Pro. This sounds cool. Make the low end come through a bit more, perhaps. Might actually select a low shelf filter for this, because shelf filters tend to sound a bit smoother. You can see this is a shelf filter and this is a low cut. This is a bell. And if you were to take out, let's say, the high frequencies with a bell, it would sound very unnatural. That's why a shelf is there, to make it sound a bit more natural. And I'm going to do the same for the low frequencies. Take them out with a shelf. Cool, let's play that together. Ooh, dark. Cool. And there's one more layer to the Atmos layer called Atmos High Stab, which is just a stab variation that plays every few bars. 2 bars. Let's go into 2-bar mode. Perfect. And this is it. Atmospheric stab sound. Put it in here. Reduce it down to 2. Duplicate that towards the end. So we're just creating texture layers, adding sounds that are higher in frequency on top of each other, based all around the recording that we have here. So we start with the recording, add some stabs every 8 bars, create a saw wave pluck. You can also use any sounds. You don't have to use a saw wave specifically. I just like this one because of its simplicity. Reverted that to audio, or resampled that to audio. Created a pluck using this crazy little utility automation here. The gain, created a lower layer from that, so we're still using the same sample, converting that to another audio track, and now we have this atmospheric high stab all together. Not entirely the right key, so let's highlight these guys here, hit Shift and Tab, and repitch until we find the right pitch. There we go. And let's fiddle around with the warp mode until we have a sound that we like. Yeah, I find Complex Pro to be naturally one of the best warp modes for atmospheres and textures like this. Let's crank down the volume here. And you know what? Now we can actually remove the Atmos Serum layer so we keep our session nice and clean. Before Atmosphere, simple drum groove. With Atmosphere, a whole new world. That sounds so dark. I love it. Okay, that was the Atmosphere.